Today, we're looking at Robert Oster's Blue Denim. Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. I get inks, test them, and share the results with you. Robert Oster's Blue Denim is a blue ink. To make sure I have a range of writing experience with this ink, what I do is I do the writing samples. I then put the ink into a different pen for a day. I then put it into a Noodler's Nibcreaper to take my notes for this video. Before we get to the writing samples, let's look at the sciencey bits. Up first is a chromatography, and I agree with Vita that I've learned a lot by doing multiple chromatographies. This is a special one. We see a light purple on the bottom of the left one, which is done the way it's supposed to be done. It's a light purple, it becomes a darker purple, then we see this green line that seems to come out of nowhere, and then this fantastically bright blue and a super dark blue across the top of it. A lot of colors making this one up. Now the one on the right, I let dry for 10 minutes before I dunk it into water. There's a slight grayer line at the bottom, which means it might hold on against a little bit of water testing, but ultimately this chromatography looks the same as the one done otherwise. Resistance tests are done to see how this ink can be expected to hold up on the page and how hard it might be to clean out of your pen. I let the smear dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, it seems to perform very well. There's a little bit of spread, but only minor when you compare it to the other words written on the page, all in an extra fine nib. But I wouldn't avoid it as a note taker. Water, a drop of water for 30 seconds is completely pulling it off the page. It makes me feel it's the only thing I would need to clean this out of my pen. It feels like it's a very well-behaved ink in the pen. Pen flush, which you shouldn't need to clean your pen with, does the same thing, pulls a majority of it right off the page, pushes it away from the area that was at. Bleach completely obliterates it, takes it entirely off the paper, like it wasn't there. For the inks I've tested, I have found an average viscosity of 2.5, with the realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. Robert Oster's Blue Denim has a viscosity of 2.41, which puts it almost at that average. This is a almost perfectly normal ink. Great. To find my average dry times, I use my writing samples of the extra fine and medium nib done on Clairefontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. For the inks I've tested, I've found an average dry time of 17 seconds, with normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. Robert Oster's Blue Denim has an average dry time of 15 seconds, which makes it normal. Just normal. Both in viscosity and dry time, this is a great ink to be able to familiarize yourself with your pens, because its flow and dry time are so normal. Now let's get to the writing sample. I got this ink in sample form, and to keep my writing samples consistent, I use a Jinhao 159 with a Goulet 1.1 stub. I use a Jinhao X450 with a Goulet medium, and a Jinhao X750 with a Goulet extra fine. Apparently my brain stopped working for a second. So, looking at Clairefontaine, I wouldn't really call this bleed just because it's down near the scrubby. So we have no bleeding, no ghosting. With the 1.1, we have no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, some minor shading. Now this is a really neat kind of ink to me because of what it does with its shading sometimes. Here we go. Camera was like off. Alright. So we definitely get some shading here. And the shading is very nice that we do get. With the extra fine, we have no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. Definitely getting shading. Some very nice shadings going on. 7 seconds to dry. With the medium, it's definitely a darker ink. It's darker almost to the point of feeling like a different ink. I have to move the mic again. Let's see how... Oof. The figuring out of the microphone stuff is like the hardest part of all of this. Nope. I apologize to everybody. I hope I'm not an idiot and can remember to edit it out. Alright. The medium. The medium is definitely a darker tone. This is neat because you almost get different colors in this ink. And at times it makes me, makes me feel like it's kind of a turquoise, but it's a blue. But then sometimes it's really, really dark, like a blue-black, but it's definitely a blue. Yeah. No feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, crazy shade. The whole way through, crazy shade. 13 seconds to dry. Looking at the scrubby, the medium doesn't show us nearly the shade that we get in the writing. Look at how little shading goes on in a medium scrubby, but look at the word brown. Look at the word dog, or seconds, or jumps, or lazy. It's nuts. So the scrubby's not 100% test for us. The extra fine doesn't give us as much color variation, and yet we get a lot more in the writing. So a lot of these things that we need to look at in their entirety. Now when it comes to the smear test, I would be able to recover this if I smeared it. Looking at Tomoe River, I have no bleeding. I don't count this as bleed. It's at the scrubby. That's where I'm an idiot and I put it on real hard. Sometimes I just scratch through the page. There is ghosting because it's Tomoe River. With the 1.1, I have no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade. But that's neat blue right there, because then it gets just a little bit darker for the extra fine. So that's neat, just a little bit darker on the extra fine. The extra fine has no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade. But it's neat how that changes right there. 14 seconds to dry. On the medium, again, it goes a couple tones darker. So we get definite color variation through the use of the nib on our papers here. The medium has no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade. 26 seconds to dry. I'm not willing to wait 26 seconds on this paper for this color. It's not an ugly color. I would just rather use a different paper. Looking at the scrubby, we have no color variation on the scrubby, which lets us know we're not getting color variation in this writing. The smear, you don't get to recover it, as is almost always the case. Rhodia paper, no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, definite shading. That B in the middle of Robert, definitely darker. The bottom corner and top corner of the O of Oster, definitely darker. Again, the U to the E, definitely darker, so nice shading on this. Extra fine, no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, shade. Lots and lots and lots of shade. If you like shade, this is an ink that maybe you should go get a bottle of. If you don't like this ink, you go ahead and contact me, because this is a nice shading ink. 10 seconds to dry. That's pretty good. I can live with that. Medium. The medium nib gives us no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. Almost no shade. Almost no shade to speak of here. It's a dark color. It's a nice color. Dark. Unaffected by you passing over it multiple times. Looking at the scrubby, that becomes immediately obvious. The extra fine gives us a lot of shade. The medium, none. And the smear, you could probably recover the extra fine. The medium's an up in the air. Not sure if you could recover the medium. It shows up better on camera. Thing I've learned is, if you need to recover, maybe you need to recover on camera. Because as I watched other people's writing samples, and I do my own, you can recover better on camera than you can in person. This is the Monokaki paper, Monokaki. It has no bleeding. It has ghosting. It's a nice thin paper. It's not as thin as Tomoe River. It sounds a little thicker. Definitely a little bit thicker, but it doesn't feel like it's the and I'd like to know exactly what, weight and all that it is. I don't know. I can't really find out, and it's okay. The 1.1 has no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade. Still a nice blue, but no shade. Extra fine gives us no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. Some nice shading going on. Nice shading the whole way through. Just more subtle. Where other times we saw very stark and it's darker and then it's lighter again, not as much here. Very gradual into darker and gradual out again. I think it's just about how the ink is settling on this paper. 8 seconds to dry. The medium gives us no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade. We lost the shade. 13 seconds to dry. And when we look at the scrubby test, we see in the scrubby that we sort of expect. We expect a little bit to have some shade in the extra fine and none in the medium. The smear, the extra fine looks like it was writing very dry, and maybe that's why I was getting a lot more color variation. The medium looked like it was writing a bit wetter, so it looks like that is huge in control here. Same thing when we go to the Moji paper. Moji, no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. Shade spots too, I see. I see the T get a little darker. I see the R get a little darker, and that's it. So it looks achievable. With the extra fine, we have no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. Minor shading. Just minor shading. I see shading in lazy. I see shading in brown and in fox. So I see it in this area of the paper, not in this area of the paper. So I don't know if the ink is shading or if there was something up with the paper. But I do have some shading going on there. 6 seconds to dry. With the medium, we are getting some feathering. It's really minor. Super, super minor. And like I see it with the M. I'm not worried about how the J looks funky. That's where my thumb goes. It looks like the dry on the bottom part is almost, it's like the very beginning of feathers, but it's nothing that's distracting. The only thing that stood out to me first really was the M, but that's where my thumb seems to go while I'm doing writing samples. No feather, no spread, no halo, no real feather, that's why. No feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade. Again, I don't know that I want to go with this being feather with the M and a tiny bit there with the dry. I'm wondering, when I did this, if maybe some of that's me, and if that's me. So I want to call it some user error because I have not had problems with this paper. So I'd be surprised. But it's possible. Why are we out of focus? So it's possible. Why aren't we on? There we go. Manual focus. Ha! Beat you. The smear, we could recover this. Finally, I beat the camera and the video is over. That's what I have for the writing sample. Instead of finding inks that look like Robert Oster's Blue Denim, I prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I've chosen Noodler's Black Swan and Australian Rose because it's such an amazing magenta color. Before I give my opinion on this ink, I would ask if you've enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. And if it's your first time here, I would invite you to subscribe. So what do I think of Robert Oster's Blue Denim? Sometimes when I'm looking at it, I think blue-black. Other times I think turquoise. It's got an almost chameleon effect depending on your nib and your paper, which, if that's the kind of thing you enjoy, that's fantastic. I think both the blue-black look that it gives and the turquoise look that it gives are both amazing, but it seems to almost color shift at times, which reminds me of those cars when they drive by and they look blue at one point and green at another. It's truly very interesting. Very nice ink. Thanks for watching.